Casto's book, When Misfits Become Kings, is the story of a generation disqualified in the eyes of society. And these misfits wander the world missing both a plan and a purpose. I'm reading from the back of the book. Never realizing that their destiny is divine. But it's not just the story of this generation, it's the condition of us all. At some point, every person has felt disconnected or unqualified and alone. But there is good news. Your God-designed destiny is not controlled by your background or your social or economic status. It is unlocked through secret intimacy with the creator of your future, and that's where misfits become kings. And I also want to read to you from the YouTube channel Charisma House, which is the publisher of this book. There is an introduction to the book from Mark Casto, the author himself. And this is a quote from that video. A misfit doesn't necessarily have a network, a kingdom connection, or even finances to do what God has placed in their heart. But if you can find the secret place of the Most High, that's where opportunity begins. In my book, When Misfits Become Kings, you discover how God qualifies you in the insignificant, how rejection is opportunity for kingship. You will be awakened to the reality of the secret place and how it is the key to unlocking your future. When you close the pages of this book, you will have a revelation that no matter where you're at, what position you're in, or who you're under, all of it is working to bring misfit into kingship. And that again is from the YouTube channel Charisma House. And the secret place, if you've never heard that term, when you spend time alone with God in secret, it is often referred to you spending time in the secret place. And when you do that, when you spend time alone with God, the author says his blessings will never fail to illuminate your world and your path will become a little brighter every day. So whatever problem you're going through right now, that's the answer. Sit alone with God and talk to him about it. Ask for direction. Ask for what should I do? Just talk to him like a friend. Don't look to other things for answers because the answer is going to be found in him, the right answer. So I'm getting off track here, which I often do, but have you ever felt out of place? Have you ever felt there's a whole list of words that describes misfits? Misunderstood, an outsider. Have you ever felt like a square peg in a round hole? Overlooked, underappreciated? Have you ever felt like the black sheep of the family? Have you ever been shunned or despised? Have you ever felt like you're unworthy or like you're a disappointment or a castaway or an embarrassment? Have you ever felt discarded or just like an oddball? All of these names describe misfits. And if that's you, the Lord is looking for misfits that he can raise up to become kings. And, God has a history of plucking the overlooked and the underappreciated ones out of obscurity and promoting them to positions of leadership. There are many examples of this in the Bible. One example is the story of David. He was a shepherd boy. He was considered the black sheep of the family. He was the shunned one, the outcast, the misfit. He was rejected by his family. In Psalm 69, as he was king, David said this, I have become a stranger to my brothers and an alien to my mother's children. Now, the backstory on David, it would take a long time to explain, and the author does this very well in the book. But long story short, from the day of David's birth, his family treated him like an outcast. He was a castaway. He spent most of his time in the pasture. He spent more time in the pasture than he did around people. Quote from the book, being a misfit isn't necessarily a bad thing. Being shunned by the world can actually be a blessing in disguise. It provides one with the time and the elbow room to grow. So, living as an outsider led David to depend on himself. He became very skilled at slinging stones, and he learned to depend on the still small voice of God. And his skill with a slingshot ended up taking down the giant Goliath, and his favor with God transformed this family reject into an anointed king. So if you see yourself as a misfit, a reject, a black sheep, or a castaway, or any of those other words I mentioned, the lesson here is that your obscurity, your alone time, it is actually an opportunity to develop your greatness, improve your gifts and your skills, but most importantly, it is an opportunity to strengthen your connection with God. Quote from the book, "It is this personal, private time with the Creator that will prepare you for your eventual premiere. There is a plan designed just for you, but it's up to you to accept your assignment." So we prepare for the assignment by spending time with God, and then when we accept the assignment, we allow God to direct our steps. And this book also offers Moses as an example. This was a man who was very confused about his identity. He wasn't sure about the assignment that God was leading him into. Quote, "Moses didn't realize that God wasn't looking for a man with a plan already in mind. He just needed a man who would walk with him. And once Moses let God direct his steps, he would be able to do anything God commanded him to do." So Moses didn't feel qualified to do what God was asking. And I can relate to that. I didn't feel qualified to start this channel, but I realized I didn't need to feel qualified. And we'll get into that. So, as we fellowship with God, He gives us clear direction about our identity and our purpose. But this is the mistake that a lot of people make. We try to find our identity in our gifts and talents. We try to find our identity in economic status. Some people find their identity in their level of education, their careers, their accomplishments. But there's a quote in here that I want to share. We measure our success by the approval of man. God never designed you to find your approval in man. He wants you to receive your approval from Him, your Creator. We live stressed and complicated misfit lives because we are living for the wrong praise. So, whose praise are you living for? Do you seek the admiration and approval of people, or is it God's approval that is most important to you? When we allow man's opinions to give us our sense of worth, we give people power over us that should belong to God alone. That's a good point. And then another quote, "I believe one of the greatest sins of my generation is that Christians compromise being fully pleasing to God in order to obtain public popularity." So, we really need to look to God for our direction, look to God for our approval. And page 94, there's another quote I wanted to share. But before I get to that, there's a tail end of the last one. People whose opinions have nothing to do with our identity. We try to prove ourselves to those people. We live in a generation obsessed with likes and comments and retweets. When we live for the opinions of others, we begin to think that their opinion is our identity. There's nothing you can do to truly gain people's approval. If you have it for a moment, it will be gone in the next, and that's why it is a waste of time to let the opinions of those who don't believe in you shape your identity. That point there is really good. We waste time letting the opinions of those who don't even believe in us shape our identity. And on page 94, there's another good quote. "The enemy of your soul wants your greatest desire to be public success, because then you will strive in your own ability to get a platform of some kind, whether for ministry, your career, or your personal life." We cannot look to ourselves for acceptance in the presence of a holy God. We have to depend upon our access to His identity rather than relying on our own. If someone were to say to me, "What makes you think you're qualified to talk about all these topics that you cover on your channel? You don't have a degree." Well, I would say to that person, I don't need one. that is something that's required of the world. That's a worldly requirement to have a degree. I have access to godly direction and godly wisdom, so I'm really not doing this on my own. God is directing my steps. So don't let anyone, make you feel unqualified for anything that God ever calls you to do. Because when you're called by God, He's the one who qualifies you. And for the record, I did come very close to a degree. I was a single mother during my college years, and I was working 2 jobs. One morning, I woke up on the kitchen floor, walked to the bedroom, passed out a second time, and that was when my doctor told me that I needed to take something off my plate. I couldn't take my jobs off my plate because that's what paid the bills. I couldn't give up being a mom. So I stepped away from college, but fortunately, God does not care about my education. All He cares about is my willing heart. And that is really all you need to do something for God, a willing heart. So back to Moses. He was a misfit. He stuttered. He was a murderer. He did nothing more than care for sheep. He was a sheep herder. Quote, Moses responded to God's invitation for a personal relationship. It was out of this personal relationship that God caused him to rise above the excuses and the failures of his misfit ideas and do mighty things in his lifetime. The secret to a misfit becoming a king, those who have done mighty things for God, their love for God motivated them to take risks and be obedient to the Lord's every command. Only God's presence can cause a misfit to operate as a king. I made a video titled Kids and Adults Wonder Why Am I Here? I'm going to attach that video as an end screen so you can click on that as I wrap this one up. But every misfit wants to know if their life really matters and what is the point of living. I think it's something we've all wondered at one time or another. Chapter 5 of the book explains that we were all created for the will of God. It is His will that you are here. Quote, God has placed deep inside your spirit a purpose that only you can fulfill. So you must ask yourself, am I willing to submit my misfit self to the process of knowing God in order to know my purpose? So that's the question I'm going to leave you with. And I have a couple more quotes from the book if you have time to stick around. One of them is the importance of having a servant's heart. And that's on page 151. And it says, God's favor is more often seen on those who are serving than on the opportunists who are trying to climb the ladder of success without serving. God will exalt the humble and bring low the proud. This is a law of the kingdom. The greatest among us is the servant of all. Also, how God plans to place a leader in your life when you're called to do something great for Him. And as I said, we are all called to do that. I'm not saying that as if only certain people are. Many are called, few are chosen. The ones who are chosen are the ones who accept the call. They've chosen to accept the call of God on their life. So God will place a leader in your life. And I'm still wondering who that leader is for me. I kind of have gotten a glimpse of that. But God places authority in your life. He will always place a leader over you to help prepare you for your destiny. Trust God with the leaders He places around you. If we really want to become great in God's kingdom, it starts with getting under the authority of God's leader in your life and being obedient to that person's commands and faithfully serving others. So there's also a quote here about the importance of reaching out to meet people's needs. That can be a catalyst to you finding your purpose. Your destiny is locked up in the needs of the people around you, the book says. It's when you find and meet that need that a spark of destiny hits deep inside your spirit and something comes alive. While you were meeting someone else's need, God connected you to someone or something that has impacted your own life. It's just the way God works. So you want to keep that in mind. And it says you're going to accelerate as you submit to authority. So, as you come under that leader or that mentor and you submit to their authority, acceleration happens. when you place yourself under God's given authority. Not only do you get to serve and learn, but you are able to glean from your mentor's wisdom and insight. You accelerate your growth through the learning that you get from your leader. And you also want to pray for that mentor to appear. You know, it says, I want to encourage you today as you are evaluating your life to find someone to whom you can submit for a season of preparation, someone you can trust to offer leadership during this season of preparation. The person you think would be ideal may not be the one that God has for you. So seek him in prayer and ask him to connect you with the person that he has purposed to mentor you in this season of preparation. Learn to surrender your dreams and stay humble. At the end of those 4 seasons of impartation will be released that will carry you into your future, because you will have clearly grown spiritually and in your professional gifts. So be sure to pray and keep an eye out for that mentor that God sends your way. And he also stresses the importance of staying humble. And, that can be a problem for some people. We can get, full of ourselves as we start to grow and become successful in what we're doing. God wants to bring people into your life who will challenge and correct you when you're wrong. So don't be afraid. Don't be too proud to take correction when that comes your way. It's very important to stay humble. God does not like pride. Pride goes before a fall every time. One of the worst mistakes you can make when you're just starting out is to think you know everything. You need to have your hand on the pulse of God's heart to know what he wants to do through you. And I ask that all the time with my channel. I don't want my ideas to be my own. I want him to let me know what he wants to talk about next, what he wants me to talk about next. And, it's a constant prayer. Show me what you want me to share this week. And he always answers it. He always answers it. He will send things from a variety of places on all the same subject, and that's how I know repeated messages are the way God speaks to you. It's one of the many ways. So, and another one is don't value productivity for God over loving God. This one I struggle with too. I have to keep correcting myself and not spend too much time on these videos, or more time on these videos than I am sitting with him, in prayer and just talking to him and reading the word. I think there have been many weeks when I have done that. I've actually spent more time on this video than I have on prayer, and I need to correct that. That could be why, I'm not elevating at an accelerated pace right now, but that's okay. I don't need to have 1 million followers. I'm fine with my 500. Because I know I have a lot to learn. I don't want acceleration at this point. Maybe he knows that, or maybe he knows that I'm not ready. I don't know, but don't value productivity for God over loving him and spending time with him. And the quote from the book is, if I had it to do over again, I would spend more time in meditation and prayer and just telling the Lord how much I love him and adore him. And that quote actually came from Billy Graham. It was a response to a question when someone asked him, if you were to do things over again, would you do anything differently? We value productivity for God over loving God, and that is a big mistake. But Billy Graham reached a point where he realized that the greatest thing in life is to get with God in secret, to get alone with him and build that vital relationship with the Lord. That is number one. That's what the Lord wants more than anything. He'll take that before you doing anything for him, to just sit and get in relationship with him. That is the most important thing. So don't let that be less important than how productive you are and how much time you spend producing things and doing things for the Lord. He wants most to be in relationship with you. That's number one. So, no matter what background you are from or how out of place you may feel, get ready, because the Lord is looking for misfits that he can raise up to become kings. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it inspired you. I will not have a video next week. I have some events coming up that will make it very difficult for me to get a video out. So my plan is to be back in 2 weeks. I hope to see you then. I appreciate all of you.